They should have said the poet. The poet. They should have said the poet. The poet.
This is Sending Poets, a podcast about ideas. Our goal is to understand metaphorical truths within the beauty we find in the human experience. Sending Poets. Is fear ever fair? Is it something we can use, or does it use us? My name is John. With me is Bob and Tucker. Good morning, you guys.
Morning,
Morning, morning.
And today we're going to talk about fear. And I like this question about is fear ever fair? I think we'll come back to it here and there throughout the episode here. But I want to start with this story that I would say it's like the closest experience I've had, probably will ever have, to my own like fear and loathing in Las Vegas story. From a couple years ago, my wife and son and I, we went to see the Beatles Love show at the Mirage in Vegas. It's Cirque du Soleil show, and part of the story may or may not have to do with the substance I may or may not have ingested, which is absolutely definitely legal. Was at the time still legal in Las Vegas. Wanted to just throw that out there that anyway, so but I will say, like, it starts at the Venetian, which is across from the Mirage. We're walking to the Mirage. We're at this like crosswalk, and it was like a moment that hit me real hard where I was like, and by the way, this is like June 2022. It was like 100 plus degrees, maybe like almost 105 or something crazy, where I just was like, I think this is the hottest I've ever experienced. It's so hot right now. I looked at both of them, my family. I was just like, you guys, I can't believe how hot it is right now. Like, we're waiting for the light to turn so we can cross the street. I remember just being like looking across the street, seeing shade. And I just remember like being very sure that as soon as I get in the shade, everything will be fine. But right now, like, I'm melting. This is the hottest I've ever been in my life. So it started like that, you know. So finally we get light turns, we go across the street, getting into the shade. I'm like, oh, relief. Like, oh man. And then I start seeing like all these people like pouring out of the doors. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many people right now. Like, oh my God. And I remember telling them, like, you guys got to direct me. I'll follow you. I don't want to try to figure out where this theater is. They're like, yeah, it's fine. It's cool. It's cool. So we make our way through people. We see the theater. Oh, we're kind of early. We should find a place to sit. I will say it was really fun. A couple nights ago, we were kind of testing Jay, my son's memory of this. Like, what do you remember about this? And by the way, he's much better storyteller than me. But he remembered that we had these little pop bubble fidget things. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? They're these little plastic things that have these little bubble, like plastic things that you can like push from one side to the other, and you basically just push them back and forth, but it's sort of this fidgety thing. Does that sound familiar?
Like bubble wrap that doesn't.
Yeah, perpetual butter wrap, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not like you pop it and then it's popped forever. It's like you just turn it over and pop it the other side or whatever. So I had forgotten about that. It was great. When Jay was retelling what he remembered, I was like, oh, that's right. That thing saved my life. It was very handy to just have that in my hand while we're walking through all these people. And like, anyway, so we get to this point where we find a place to sit just to like pass the time. We're sitting there like just hanging out. Kim or Jay, neither one of us remember who actually said it. Somebody was like, hey, you have the tickets, right? And had this just intense panic wash over me because I was like, oh, no, they're in the room. I left the tickets in the room. Oh my God. I was like, I ruined it. Like, and I was like, but I need the tickets. I will run back. I was like, you guys, it's probably better you stay here because I'm going to have to run my ass off. Even though we were early, it's like, I got to go all the way back to the New York where we were staying. Oh, sorry. No, I think we were staying at the Bellagio, but it was still like, it would have been a long trek, even getting on trams or whatever, maybe even like cabs. Like it would be, but I was like, I got to do this. I have to go get the tickets. I was like, sorry, man, I fucking ruined it. Like, sorry. And then somehow it was like, wait, I have the tickets on my phone. And then just again, just flood of relief. I was like, oh my God. I thought it was like the worst. I thought I'd like ruined it, but like, oh yeah, I do also have the tickets on my phone. Luckily, it's like 2022. Like I hadn't really fully embraced digital ticketing. So it was in the beginning of that. So it wasn't quite, by my habit. So I had this like intense, fearful thing. Wow. Oh, but everything's fine. Okay. Again, like everything's fine. Okay. So then we start to make our way to the theater. I remember being like, hey, I do have the tickets. I will be responsible. I can definitely like show the tickets on the phone. It'll be fine. I remember saying, but like, you guys will probably want like concession stuff. So like, you guys do that. I'll pay for it. I can pay, but I don't want to really like talk to anybody. It's fine. Ken's like, I gotta hit the bathroom quick. Okay. So we're like, Jay and I are like sitting on the floor, just like waiting for her in the bathroom. And he goes in his retelling of it. He's like, I remember the ceiling had this weird mirror like bubble thing going. He's like, all I remember is like kind of staring at it. And then you started crying. And it's like great the way he said it, because he had that upspeak at the end, the question, like you started crying. I was like, yeah, I kind of remember that. I think I was just in this like really emotional state of like really excited about watching the show, really relieved that I had the tickets and I didn't have to run back. But that was kind of funny. Anyway, so we
Intense
get
gratitude.
yeah, right. Yeah, it was like really. I think that's where those tears were coming from. By the way, that'll be a future episode. Crying and stuff. Anyway, so we get to the ticket taker person, or scanner. Right, it's on my phone. Ticket scanner person. All that goes great. Not only does it go great, but we're like, where are our seats? And she looks at my phone, and she looks behind her, and she's like, right there. And this is in a big arena where we could have had to walk around. We could have to go up and down stairs. It was like right there. Your seats are right there. It was like excellent. Like we just, conveniently picked the best place to just walk up to. There's the, not only that, there's the concession stand right next to like the little door to go in. It was perfect. So we walk up. This is where this comes in. This story is like building up to this moment here. They order popcorn or whatever. Jay remembers it kind of being awkward with the guy behind the counter, right? We wanted like a cup of water. Kim was like, I really want a cup of water. Sorry, ice, a cup of ice, and then a bottle of water. And I was just like, you're talking to him. That's fine. I'm just paying. Anyway, so the point comes where the guy looks at me, and I'm thinking he wants my credit card, right? But he looks at me, looks at my eyes, and he says, do you know what the definition of fear is? And I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? But somehow I had like the wherewithal to just be like, oh, okay, he's asking me, what do I think? I was like, yeah, actually, I have a lot of thoughts about fear. I was like, I don't know if right now is the best time to get into this, but like maybe someday we could talk about it. And he cuts me off and he goes, false evidence appearing real. And again, somehow I had the wherewithal to like recognize, oh, it's the acrostic thing, like acronym, whatever, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And I thought that was really neat that I never heard that before. And I was just like, nice. And all I could do was sort of like put my fist out, like fist bump, like good call, dude. Wow, that was really cool. So then that happened. We paid, we turn around to walk away. And all three of us are just kind of like, did that really happen? Like that was the weirdest fucking thing that this dude just like says this out of nowhere sort of. Okay, so then we go to our seats, we sit down. As we're sitting down, I look down and the shirt I'm wearing is the one from Dune that says fear is the mind killer. And like none of us realize like, oh, that's probably why he said that. But it was really funny because in the moment, it just seemed like it totally came out of nowhere in this like, this previous like 30 minutes or so had been like, filled with two intense moments where it was like, I'm melting. Oh, I just need this relief. Oh, I got the relief. Oh my God, I forgot the tickets. Oh my God, we got the tickets. Okay. Do you know what the definition of fear is? Like, what is happening? It was just like one of the most craziest experiences.
It kind of reminds me though of the guy at Costco who checks your receipts as you walk out. And every time I go through and I meet the same guy, he always checks out what shirt I'm wearing. And he makes a little comment. Now, by the way, it's one of two things I've determined. Either he's doing it to keep his sanity because he's just checking receipts all day, or it's like a a tool to use to throw you off your game if you're trying to steal, I presume, or whatever. Like if like it's one of those things like like someone at the airlines, asking you some off the wall question when you're in the security line or something like that. Or, like, so it makes me think of like international, what do they call when you go through the international gate? It's the customs people.
Customs, yeah.
And they can start asking you anything, like all kinds, like, are you here for business or pleasure or whatever? They don't care, but they're just trying to fuck with you a little bit to see are you nervous or not.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but it freaked me out when you told me that. With this story right now, that I can heavily empathize with being not wanting to talk to anybody. I just want to pay. And then out of all the times this guy asks you something totally profound and deep.
And not only profound and deep, but like specifically about fear. Totally. Do you know the definition of fear? Like, is this real? Like, is this really happening right now? Like, oh my God.
Oh, it's beautiful. So, but I could see it. I could see it in a cinematic way, meaning like I would have it shot where it's all above the t-shirt. Like it's almost like
exactly.
It's like and then at the end, like as you walk away, it's a full body shot. And it's that's the reveal. It's like and then you have the what's that show with Larry David? The
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Then the Curb music plays.
Yes. Oh my God! Challenge accepted, dude. I'm gonna try to put that shit together somehow.
No, that's a great way to do it because you would have like that crazy, and obviously hypothetically you're on some hypothetical substance that hypothetically alters perception of some sort. Heightens anxieties and
exactly.
So, exactly. Kudos for making it through that.
Thanks. Scary. Yeah, and it did have a a happy ending or whatever. But because the show's great, by the way, Cirque du Soleil, they do amazing work. I will say that like Kim and I had seen it before, and it's a unique stage. It's sort of circular-ish, oval-ish. There's like an upper section and a lower section, and previously we'd seen it the upper section. And there's a part where, and I'm saying this because like the Mirage was bought by Hard Rock Hotel, and it's closed now. And I don't know what the future of the Beatles Love Show is, so it was one of the reasons we wanted to see it again, and Jay was down, so that was great. But there's a part where I think it might be Octopus's Garden, but because it's all Beatles songs with all this crazy Cirque du Soleil stuff happening. It's so good. But this bed comes out in the middle of the stage, and the sheets of the bed like expand out, and they end up covering the entire audience at this halfway mark. So if you're on the upper section, you see the top of the sheet, and if you're under the bottom section, you're under the sheet, but there's like fans going, so it's flowing. It's one of the coolest things ever. And this time we were like, let's sit in the lower section to be under it, which was totally awesome. What I wasn't prepared for, and public service announcement, protect your ears. It was the show starts with the Beatles mania era, and there's like enhanced screaming that they pipe in while like the music is playing. And I remember sitting there going like, I am ruining my ears right now because like it's so loud. It was so loud sitting that close. And Jay and Kim, I think, had earplugs, and I did not because I'm a wax builder and I don't put earplugs in. I should have had like headphones or something. That was the only other part that was sort of scary and terrifying, but luckily it was just those screams. In fact, I'm sorry I keep going, we'll get back to this, but this is relevant. I had my hearing checked recently, and like I definitely have reduced hearing at higher frequencies, and it is very interesting. Obviously I played in a death metal band, and that was a factor, but I do wonder if that one moment just really like finished off the last little bits of hairs that were there. Yeah, just because of those super high pitched screams of just like, oh my God. Anyway, back to fear. So I'll, like I said, maybe we just keep, is fear ever fair? Well, in that case, by the way, I like it as a question, but I'm not expecting this to be like a yes or no. I hope that's like obvious to you guys. I think it's just a fun, prompt. In this case, like, yeah, was it fair or unfair? It was kind of like outside of that realm. I think it ended up being a good story. It was gnarly at the time. Everything kind of worked out, So maybe it was fair if I have to choose. Was it unfair? Like, yeah, it worked out.
Fear was funny.
Yeah.
I have a real one. Just came to me. I haven't thought about this story in a long time. Maybe I've talked about it once. I can't remember. But I was driving cross country in the back of and I was sleeping in the back of my truck. So I had a truck with a cap on the back, and I had an air mattress in the back of the pickup. It was a Ford Ranger, so it was a tiny little truck, and tiny little air mattress. And I think I was in California, and I was trying to sleep in like hotel parking lots and stuff. And I got kicked out of a couple hotel parking lots. Like security guards would tap on the window and stuff like that and make me leave. And I ended up parking in this agricultural area, like some kind of I want to say it was like a vineyard or something, or some kind of a field, like right off the highway, like I-5, right off the highway. I would take the exit and then just parked like on the side of the road, whatever. And so tired, like so tired. And I got in the back. I had my suitcase back there. I took my shoes off, took my pants off. I think I had a sleeping bag or something on the air mattress I get in. And I don't know, half an hour later or whatever, indeterminate time. It's before cell phones, by the way. This is probably like late 90s. I see this red light reflect, bright red light reflect off the back of the cap, and I realize it's brake lights. And no shit, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. Like I don't think I've ever been afraid before or since, like this one moment. And the hair stands up on my body. And within probably 3 seconds, 2 seconds, I didn't have time. I didn't take a bunch of time to consider. I jump out. So I'm just wearing tighty whities, no pants, t-shirt with keys. I run around to the front of the truck, jump in, slam the key in, start up, and just peel the fuck out.
No shit.
And so all I remember is there was another vehicle that had stopped. And it's probably like 2 a.m. or something like that. So it's not a normal thing. Like some vehicle had stopped. And I didn't have time to think, but thinking back, I think I was so scared because I would think, no one knows I'm in here. Like it would never, no one would ever think that there's someone in the back of this truck asleep. Because it just looks like a normal pickup truck with a cap on the back, and maybe abandoned or something like that. So I never got to look at the driver or passengers. I don't know if they were just good Samaritans. I have no clue.
Wasn't like a state patrol or anything like.
It was not. It was just
a regular car.
Just a regular car truck. I don't even remember, honestly. I just remember how bright the taillights were.
Yeah.
When they drove, because I was pointed, say, north, and they were headed southbound, and they they went by the vehicle, my truck, and then the lights hit up, but they weren't that far past me. It wasn't like they were 100 yards away. It was like they stopped maybe 100 feet away or something like that, and they were just sitting there. And so I'm guessing they're probably wondering, what's this truck, or what are we? I don't know. What my point is this: is fear fair. Well, shit, I could never tell. Here's my point. This is makes sense. It's actually going to make sense. By the time you wait to find out, is it fair? You're too damn late. Because let's do Good Samaritan. No harm done. They asked me, hey, you need a place to stay, hot meal, gas money, super sweet people. Well, no worries. No worries. If it's like, we're going to jack your car, and now you saw us, so I gotta kill you. The worst case scenario, like. Sure. So what I'm getting at is there wasn't time. I didn't take time to think this thing over, detailed, and I didn't. Like I was like half naked and unarmed, and I was a young guy, and I'm by myself, and so like I didn't really feel like I should stand up for myself, and I wasn't in a place. It wasn't my property. I was literally just on the side of the road. In some, vineyard, cornfield, whatever. Anyway, it was. I definitely felt fear.
Yeah.
And it was fair for me to trust it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what actually. I honestly don't know the implications, nor do I ever want to know, honestly, because it could only be, I don't know, it could be good or bad, but if it were bad, it would be
Yeah,
very, very
it's
bad.
it right. Like then it, the thank you for sharing that. By the way, we didn't necessarily plan this. I am kind of tempted. Like, so Tucker, when was the last time you were fucking really scared out of your
Totally.
mind and want to share? But
Totally.
I mean, if you have something at the ready, like, please do. But I was gonna say, like, just to finish this up, it's like where your imagination comes into play, right? And like how worst scenario, how what's the worst you can kind of imagine, and like here we go. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah,
very
I mean, I
interesting
could have
mind
like
space to be in.
totally abducted, killed, robbed,
Right,
beaten, enslaved. I mean, who knows what could have
right.
happened? And obviously your
Oof.
brain. But here's my point, guys. Like from asleep, and I still to this day don't know how I woke up just by the red light
Yeah.
flashing on the back of my thing, because I think I was asleep. But I woke up and the hair stood up on my neck. So before I ever contemplated anything, something hit me that I was in grave danger, like grave danger.
Very interesting. Did you ever sleep on the side of the road like that again after that? Have you
Oh yeah,
ever?
oh yeah, many
Okay,
times.
well, that's cool. Well, then it wasn't so like
I
impactful,
didn't do
like,
it.
and that was the last time I ever did
No, I,
that.
I never did it in California again. I'll tell you that. There
Oh
was
yeah.
something creepy about being in the agricultural areas of California because of you're on I-5. There's just constant people coming through, but it's like also a very rural area, like low density. Like you could just disappear in some. I mean, there's just the expanse of farmland and stuff in California, and the expanse of just everything, desert and all the rest in California. Like you could just disappear so easily.
Wow.
Um, but there's so many people going through. So it wasn't like LA or San Diego or
Yeah.
whatever, where there's obviously there's danger, but there's like you have police there too, and you have hospitals and all the rest. It's like when you're out in Nowheresville and you realize, man, no, and this is before cell phones, by the way, like nobody knows you're
Right.
here. Like I'm just driving around, like I'm just going through the country, whatever. Nobody, I would just disappear. I would literally
Right.
disappear. Like, you take my truck and chop it up or whatever, I would cease to exist. And so yeah, it did freak me out a little bit, perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But I've been through a lot of desolate places. So like desolation, like in the Dakotas, or through Saskatchewan in Canada is very desolate. There's not many people, or like the deep south. You go through a lot of places that are very rural. Never fearful. Never felt anything. Big cities, I don't really, not terrified of big cities or whatever, because it's kind of a balance. It's like this, for whatever reason, this one stretch of agricultural California freaked me out. I don't know why.
Well,
Wow.
you'd probably be even more freaked out if you looked up, disappearances or, unsolved murders on that stretch of
Right.
highway. Like,
Yep. Right.
probably
Probably so.
validate those fears.
Probably
I
so.
have one. I was in my mid-20s. I think it was Christmas Eve, maybe. And I was going back home from a girlfriend's house, and I think we had been not getting along, or it was towards the end of that relationship. So I think that played into it. But it's like 11:30 at night, and I'm like, I'm gonna stop at the liquor store and grab a beer on the way home. And so I do that, and I stop at one that's, I mean, Colorado Springs is not, it's not that dangerous. So I'm gonna say in a bad part of town, but it's not like Compton. But it was not a great part of town. And I stop and I grab a beer, I get in my car, and this dude knocks on my window. And like immediately I can tell this dude's fucking blasted on meth. Right?
Wow.
And so I roll my window down a little bit, and like he's like looking like he's about to punch my window out. And he even says, no, I'm not gonna do that, but I need you to buy me a beer. And I'm just like, I'm in my mid-20s. I'm broke, but I dig through the change holder and I'm like, yeah, right, I can buy you a beer, whatever. And the whole time I'm just like, this is not like, nothing about this situation is good. Like the only way this situation ends peacefully is if I manage to get out of it. And So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll buy you a beer, whatever. And I grab some change and I get out of my car and he walks in and he immediately starts like talking to the clerk. And I'm just like, nope, that's my chance. And I run back to my car and just peel the fuck out of there. Because
Yeah.
seriously, it was like, it was just one of, and I've very rarely in life been put in those situations where like, this is going to end violently, one way
Oof.
or the other. And that was absolutely like one of those situations. But I saw an out and I took it. And yeah,
Yeah.
fear is valid. If I didn't have that fear and I was just like, oh, this fine young gentleman just needs a beer and he's just having a bit of odd, it would have ended badly. Fear is justifiable and it's a necessary survival tool, but it's also easy to manipulate that fear in others and use that to your gain.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, this was nice. We didn't plan to like do it that way, but I'm glad it came out this way. We each had something to share, like a personal story. Well, I think that's like a really good baseline to start from here with, like, so what is fear? We talked about importance of like defining things, right? And well, it was a clever thing this guy in Vegas told me about false evidence appearing real. That's the definition of fear. Well, it's one definition, I guess. That's kind of clever. It's an acrostic poem, I think, right? Is the name of that kind of, or acronym-ish type of thing. Another definition, or maybe not so much definition, but another like view on fear that I think about a lot is from the Conversations with God book I've mentioned once or twice before. We were talking about it briefly before we started recording, so I won't go into like the explanation of what it is. I will say that I heard about it from the Steve-O from Jackass, Steve-O's second memoir, which I highly recommend. Maybe that's a repeat, but it's worth repeating because it's really, really interesting. What a fascinating human Steve-O is. But he mentioned this Conversations with God thing where this guy's like writing about conversations he had from in his head, but he kind of plays it that he was talking with God. And there's this part where he talks about he suggests, I got to be careful with the words here. I don't necessarily think he was making this a proposition, right? It was more of a statement, maybe. but he says, or God, through his this conversation that he's having with the author, God says that everything can be distilled down to its origin, its source. Every action, every belief, every feeling, every emotion, everything can be traced to where did it come from, and it comes from one of two things, either love or fear, and he calls that the divine dichotomy. And I think it's really interesting. I'm not completely sold on it, but I think it's a really interesting kind of polar binary thing that he draws. That I mentioned this again like multiple times in the past. I'm generally not too interested in sticking to polar binaries, much more interested in the gray area of things. So this one is really interesting to me, that it's either love or fear. At the end of the day, everything can be, distilled down to one of those things. And so definition wise, I guess he's kind of saying that fear and love are complete opposites. If it's not love, then it's fear. And if it's not fear, then it's love. Again, kind of interesting. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think there's metaphorical truth there, but I like you, I think there's much more information in the gray area than there is in the black and white.
Yeah, like you said, information, and I think like real experiences. Like I think I guess I just feel this way. Do I have evidence? Probably. I could probably like think about like this is why I feel this way or I think this way, but I just think, feel, believe most human beings day to day do live in this gray area. It's not always either fear or love every moment. I just don't think that's realistic. I
let me
think
take
it's
the devil's advocate here, just for sake of interesting conversation and say, first off, gray is a combination of black and white.
Right.
And to presume that life is either growing or shrinking, it never stays in a perfect equilibrium. So you either have to expand or contract. And then to define love and fear as love is something that you're attracted to and fear is something you're repulsed from. Like I can see in like Tucker saying, like a metaphorical truth way, the way that you're either going towards something or away from something. You're never fully indifferent of anything. You're never at stasis at a 0 point when some kind of experience or thought or environment interacts with you. You're never really just completely in equanimity at an isolation outside of the thing. You have to flow towards it or you have to flow away from it. I mean, this is a metaphor, obviously, but like,
yeah.
So you could the great dichotomy then would be love and hate, meaning how you feel about something you want to go towards would be love, and how you feel about something you're fearful of, excuse me, not love and hate, love and fear, how you want to, because sometimes you go towards something you hate to destroy it, but I think fear is a better terminology. It's a better dichotomy. So love and fear. So love is something that attracts you, fear is something that repels you or repulses you. And
well said. I hadn't thought about it that way. I like that idea.
I mean, life is special in this regard. I think life is this it's how can I put it? It is a fight between entropy and enthalpy. So you have to put more energy into the system to maintain your cohesion. You don't get the luxury of being a rock. Like a rock sitting there is indifferent. It can be neutral. I don't think life can be neutral. I don't think life is a neutral position. It's a constant battle between the elements in yourself, the outside and the inside, and then other life that wants to use or exploit you or take what you've got or kill you and eat you or whatever you want to call it. So in a very realistic sense, to use a litmus test of am I in a love state or a fear state, I think that could be useful.
Yeah.
Well,
real quick,
I want to bring up David Eagleman, because he talks about this, and I don't think it was him. I think it was the guest on this episode, but talking about primitive life forms kind of sensory ability. And I forget what creature it was. It was a sea sponge or something like that. Some very basic life form, but basically,
C. elegans.
It could be its whole sensory system is just based off if it's going towards something it can eat. Its primitive brain floods it with dopamine. Now, if it turns away from something or there is nothing for it to eat, it doesn't get that flood. So, I mean, in a very basic, primitive level, yes, it's a love and fear. But I think as you build a more complex brain and a more complex processing system, it becomes something of, it's still based off of love and fear, but you have the ability to go, well, why do I love that? And why do I fear that?
Yeah.
And that's where your shades of gray come in, because you can look at it and go, I'm not really afraid of that, but I still don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
It's not a fear response. It's just you built a complex enough model that you go, I don't think that benefits me, so I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Is that the decision, or is that the story you tell yourself after?
Right, after the fact, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Love and fear,
yeah. But I do think you hit on a really important part there, the ability to ask the question in the first place. That's massive, for in the consciousness process, to just, and not be the fish and just, I'm getting dopamine, that means it's good. Just, this thing is something I got to eat. My brain's giving me dopamine.
But let me put something on there. I
Or
think you're exactly right, John. But real quick, this is, I think, that the key, the crux, is the time to ask the question.
oh, right. Sometimes you don't have the luxury
When a crackhead knocks
of
on your window,
yeah.
do you have time to ask about what his motivations are? Do you just grab
Yeah.
the change, run inside, and hope for the best?
Yeah. Yeah. Or yeah, like you saw the brake lights and like,
Yeah, you don't have
you
time.
know,
I think so. So like, and to the point though is, if you want to battle this thing, you have to distinguish between that first perception, the intuitive feeling of the thing, the intuition of the thing, versus processing it very deliberately and checking your intuition, asking, why do I intuit that I shouldn't or should do this thing? Why do I intuit that I should go towards this thing or go away from it? I think that's exactly the take home message, is to ask that question of why. Why
yeah.
do I why do I like to have the intuition is powerful. It is the way we're built. It is probably, like, the vast majority of times, correct. Just saying. I mean, if it weren't, we probably wouldn't have evolved that system. Like
Yeah,
the
good point.
least, yeah, the least successful system is not going to be the one that evolves. It's the most successful. So there's, I mean, because let's just be honest, there's many hypotheticals or actuals where you don't have time to ask the question. So you what would you do? Like, if you
Yeah.
didn't have that intuitive sense of an emotional content coming from your primitive brain to tell you go towards this thing or run away from this thing, like, you'd be screwed. You're not going to sit there and say, well, plan A would be this, plan B would be this, plan C would be that. No, you're dead. Like, or you missed your
Yeah.
opportunity to not be dead or whatever.
But I do think it's, and I don't think you're suggesting this, but I think it's worthwhile to say what I'm about to say if I remember what I was going to say. Oh yeah, like oh yeah, like it's not like in the context of talking about fear, it's not like every situation is that life or death you have to decide right now. Like I do think it's worth talking about situations where it's not life or death. You do have time, the luxury to think about what you do. I guess what I'm getting at is like, maybe is fear fair? That's interesting. Maybe the more interesting question is like, what do we do about it? Okay, right? Like, what actions do we take after that? Because I think that's where it's really interesting to, um, and why we're able to ask the questions. Why do we do this?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting, John, to wonder, because you get an intuitive sense of fear or attraction, love, whatever you want to call it. You get this intuitive sense, like, immediately. That's the whole point of it. It's just a snap reaction, and you have a feeling about the situation. But how was that feeling derived? Like, something had to happen. Something had to weigh heavy on one side of the scale or the other. And I think that's what I'm getting at, is, so the question isn't, like, necessarily to counter the feeling, but it's to process. Okay, if my feeling is, and obviously if the bear is chasing you, you run. You don't get a choice at that point. But, like, why do I feel this sense of attraction or this sense of repulsion? Why do I feel that? Like, if you can
Mhm.
then get to it in the more logical sense, in the rational, in the narrative sense, if you can tell the story to yourself, and maybe it's true, or maybe you're just making up a totally different story that coincides with your feeling, I can't say. But if you could somehow disentangle the feeling and break it down into its constituent parts of how your brain got to feel that feeling. So let's go back to the flatworm that has food or no food. So there's some kind of sensation that's, an apparatus of smell, let's just say, that the flatworm senses its food, and it goes towards that thing. But it doesn't ever understand, as it were, that it's going towards it because it wants to eat. It just feels attraction going this way, let's just say. Whereas if you go the opposite direction, you may never find food again. You'll starve before you find your next piece of food, and that would be terrifying. But you wouldn't know that. So what I'm saying is to become not like the flatworm would be to process the feeling and begin to understand what is the constituent parts of the feeling. I guess that would be my answer.
Yeah. Well, a couple obligatory movie references because I can't help myself, but just to go back to when he said like we're not rocks, that just be. Have you guys seen Everything Everywhere All at Once yet?
Yes.
Not
yes.
yet. Still on my list.
Yeah, right. That's right. I know I mentioned it before. Yeah, Tucker, you've seen it. I mean, there's a beautiful scene, Bob. I know when you watch it, you'll really love this scene where they are rocks, and it's that's the message. Is just be. It's a really beautiful scene. Anyway, and then second movie reference here, and this has to do with fear, and ties into my story that I shared. This litany against fear from Dune. Which Frank Herbert wrote in the book. The lines in the movie are straight out of the book, and I'd like to read it. And by the way, I know you did watch Dune recently. Bob, you mentioned like sound system wasn't great. I would highly recommend trying to go back to just this scene. It's the Gom Jabbar scene, and do it with headphones so you can really appreciate like the sound craft, the way that Hans Zimmer painted this intense scene where it's all about trying to determine if the main character Paul is a human or an animal. Basically, he's put in this situation. This priestess mother says, "Put your hand in the box." In a fun Seven reference, David Fincher, Paul, the main character, says, "What's in the box?" Anyway, but
or Brad Pitt, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. Right. Yeah. What's in the box? But he puts his hand in this box, and he's like, "What's in the box?" And she says, "Pain." And as soon as he puts the box in, though, she holds up this like poison needle to his neck, and the whole thing is like, if you remove your hand from the box, I will prick you with this needle. It's instant death. What are you gonna do? Will you just keep your hand in the box? He's like, "What's in the box?" His hand's already in there, and she says, "Pain." And it's a psychological thing. I think it seems pretty evident to me that nothing's actually in that box, but it's this mind game they get into. And again, the reason I'm going into this detail here is the way that the sound plays into this. It's so beautiful. Because Paul's mom is outside of this room and she knows what's happening. She knows this test is going to happen, and she knows like he could die if he's, the way the priestess mother lady describes it is an animal who gets its leg caught in a trap will gnaw off its leg in order to survive. Like, what will you do? Kind of, are you an animal, or are you just going to realize like there's nothing in the box, even though I said it's pain. But you can't move or else you'll die. This really intense, like psychological
I took it the other
game.
way, by the way. Before you get into the quote, I took that scene the other way, meaning not are you an animal or a human, are you willing to do what needs to be done? Meaning the animal chews its leg off to survive. You have to keep your hand in to survive. I don't know if you understand what
Interesting.
I'm saying.
Yeah, no.
I take it a completely different way where it's asking more the question, do you fear pain or do you fear death? You probably fear them both.
Because there's a painless death. It's a painless
you should fear death more than you should fear pain.
Yeah, death is more of a one way, and pain you can still come back from.
Endured, but death cannot.
Yeah.
By the way, how fascinating that this piece of art evokes three separate
Yes, exactly.
Interpretations. I think that is what beauty is, right? That's
exactly. Oh, so good.
That's good. That's good shit right there.
Yeah. So the mom is outside and she starts reciting this litany out loud, and you can tell like Paul knows this too. It's part of their training. Those priestess mother, they have like a way of life that they've kind of cultivated for thousands of years, maybe hundreds of generations of humans, maybe thousands of generations actually. In fact, HBO is going to do a prequel series about Dune, the origins of this. Bene Gesserit is the name of this religious kind of institution of these priestess mothers. And one of the things they develop is the voice, where they can command people like just by it's really a fascinating thing. But back to the fear thing. So this litany of that the mom is speaking while Paul is struggling with his hand in there. She says, it goes, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it is gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Oh man, it's some of the most powerful, fucking trippy, like contemplative, like words ever. And I do think the way they put it in the film is so spectacular, because as the end of that litany is happening, Paul starts looking up and there's this sound that comes in. It's very kind of like grindy sort of, and he looks up with this intensity at the Reverend Mother Lady, and this primal scream from this this amazing vocalist that Hans Zimmer found, or maybe he's worked with her for years. Actually, I don't know. Maybe she's part of his band, but like she just lets out this like this primal scream, and the look of intensity on his face is so good. And it's like you can just tell like he had this moment where he's like, oh, that's right, nothing's happening here in this box. This is how I got it anyway. And he looks at her and he's like, I'm in control now. You know, it's like the Captain Phillips, like, I'm the captain now. You know, yeah. She's like, and then she's like, okay, yeah, you win. And she moves the needle away. I just think it's one of the most like satisfying scenes in a movie recently. And again, I highly recommend watching it with headphones and really get the impact of the sound and everything in there. But so anyway, back to the quote itself, the fear thing. I think even though it starts, I must not fear, it kind of does a 180. It's like, I will let the fear happen. It's like, it's not like I must not fear ever. It's more like I must not let the fear control me. I must recognize that the fear is going to happen. And guess what? Like, it'll run its course. I can literally use my inner eye to watch the fear go through my experience. And when I look at where what its path is, like, I will see it gone. It will pass, and only I will be left. Only I will remain. Whew. It's one of the most like intense things to me, you guys. I fucking love it so much.
I think it reminds me of my understanding of basic training or military conditioning, where for the good of the person, meaning for the good of the soldier, for them to have the best chance of survival and group victory, even though the nature of the beast is not everybody does get to survive, but the most likely outcome is to deprogram or recontextualize, recondition the learning process such that things that would normally make you fearful, you can withstand it. And like the quote says, you know, at the end, you remain. Mm-hmm. And I think that's now, whether it's being replaced with a rational thought, I don't believe. I think it's probably just more of Pavlovian conditioning that, you know, just like cognitive behavioral therapy. So if you're afraid of spiders, they, you know, read a paragraph about spiders and show you a picture of a spider, then show you a movie of a spider.
Yeah, exposure therapy kind of, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exposure therapy, where you're slowly conditioning the person that the thing that initially caused an aversion or fear response, nothing actually comes of it that's harmful. And so by slowly reprogramming a human to be, you know, no longer fearful of a circumstance that normally you would automatically be fearful of, like people shooting at you, right? Or you know, jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah.
And you have to go through it. Like, you're always going to be fearful at the beginning. If you just stop at that point, if you don't put yourself in the position to be fearful, it will control you. Like, you'll be fearful of fear. You'll be fearful of the fearful moment. You have to literally go through the fearful moment, and then presumably you survive. Because let's just say you get shot the first time, or you die the first time you get pushed out of the airplane with a parachute on, of course, is what I mean. But, you know, like you as long as you have a feedback mechanism that allows you to reinforce the fact that the fear was unfounded, I think you can start to diminish it and control it. If you are stuck at the point of I'm fearful of the fear, you will never be able to modulate that. You'll always be stuck. And it's like fear of the unknown, essentially.
Yeah.
But reasonable expectation. If I go on a battlefield today, me, myself, I've never been through any kind of conditioning experience. I don't presume that I would be brave. I presume I would be terrified if I was thrown on the front lines of a battlefield today and told to kill somebody or they'll kill me. I don't think I would be able to do it. I think I would
Yeah.
I would succumb to fear. And, maybe the only thing that would drive me would be hate. If I was given the overwhelming emotional, intuitive content of, I just want to kill this other person. I'm going to sacrifice myself to do it. I'm dead anyway, whatever you want to call it, and become enraged, I guess I could do it. So probably those are the two things that, help us get past that moment of true fear, true terror,
Yeah.
terror of a feeling.
Yeah. Real quick, because you were talking about fear, and was it fear of fear? Was it FDR, Winston Churchill, who said, greatest thing we have to fear is fear itself?
Churchill, maybe. The only thing we have to fear. The only thing we have to fear.
Yeah, the only thing we have to fear is if we'll do the ChatGPT quote. We're only about halfway through. We still got plenty of time, but I'm gonna guess that ChatGPT is gonna suggest that quote because
that's a good point. Good point.
Maybe the prompt will be, can you give me a quote about fear that's not that quote? But anyway, but back to
we get a mulligan. Okay, if it pulls that bullseye, we mulligan.
Let's do that. Let's just see what it actually does, and then give me another quote. But anyway, I wasn't sure if I'd bring it up, but I think it's a good time to bring it up. That movie Civil War. We don't have to go into details, but this concept of fear, I think, is so prominent in that, and kind of a war zone type of thing, and just highly recommend it. I really would love to do a whole episode just on that. Like, if you guys ever have the opportunity to see it, please take advantage of it and let me know, because it's one of those things. Like I kind of said this earlier. I think maybe that I kind of feel like I need to see it again, and also like I kind of don't want to ever see it again. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very, very interesting. In fact, I was thinking about these like acrostic type poems. So this is, I thought, here's something new. I haven't tried acrostic poems about movies. I have all kinds of things to say, and I write things down, but I've never tried this. So this is applicable. Here's a quick poem, and you guys tell me if you get what word this is, about Civil War specifically. Fucked existentialism and realism.
Here.
Yeah. One more, and this one's a little unfair, but it's because it's kind of clever and tricky. But freaky, unexpected, and expected ubiquitousness, crazy, cautionary tale. It's kind of unfair that I asked that, because unexpected and expected ubiquitousness, I'm considering that a single word. So it's freaky, unexpected, and expected ubiquitousness, crazy, and then again, this isn't really fair because I'm spelling cautionary tale with a K. But do you get the word? Yeah, because that was like one of the first just lasting words that just stuck with me throughout the whole experience. Just like, fuck. Anyway, so thanks for letting me side carrot into that. But so let's maybe pivot into this other. I don't know if you were prepared, but we this topic is fear of a fair. It was in our sort of archive of podcast topics, and I had the litany from Dune in there, and then I think, Bob, you added some biblical verse stuff. Did you want to kind of talk about some of that? Are you prepared?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 23rd Psalm. I mean, everybody knows this. I don't have it memorized, but it's.
I can read it. It says,
though I may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. But yeah, please go for it.
Yeah, everything you got here, because there's the numbers and it, you said everybody knows this. Like I didn't really, I think I've heard heard
My
it.
apologies. I was brought up in a Catholic school, so when
Right.
I mean, this was very ingrained
And
in
you,
me, but obviously it's
yeah,
not a common knowledge thing in this day and age. So please do. I think it's pertinent
yeah.
to read the whole
And
thing.
you too, Tucker. I think you had some Catholic kind of upbringing stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So yeah, some of that I recognize, but I didn't have the upbringing, so most of that was like kind of first time when you added it to that doc a while
What do you
ago.
think of it? What do you think of it, John? So
Well,
before I
yeah,
go to my,
so yeah, like I mean, like because I don't have the upbringing, like some of it seems so kind of foreign. And one of the things that has turned me off, I think, my whole life about, I guess it's like Abrahamic religions, but is the exclusionness of it, of like this one thing, this one guy is the one way, and it just seems very echo chambery to me. You know what I mean? Like there's no other. So in the words of like, for his name's sake, right? Uh, I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I don't. Some of that just kind of seems to like that's part of it, right? It's this whole thing of like it's this one way. You accept Jesus as the Lord and Savior. Period. No exceptions. No other. Maybe I'm overdoing it. Maybe it's really not so much the point, but that definitely sticks out. But let's go to the fear thing. So, yeah, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So, yeah, like I guess it's just saying that kind of like what we've been talking about. It seems very fitting, actually. We'll have these experiences. The shadow of death. Maybe the shadow of death is always there. Maybe this is like every day, every moment where we kind of walk through this valley of shadow of death, maybe, and it's just, back to the litany from Doom. I must not fear. I will fear no evil. Like you know, just have this faith that like, and again, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Like I don't, in this case, I guess, is it kind of saying I don't have to necessarily defend myself because you're with me. Like you will protect me, like God or whatever, right? I guess that's what I kind of think about it off the
so
cuff.
it's no, I think you're right on. I think it's inverting what was. So let's go back to your, and I'm leaning more heavily now towards your interpretation of the Dune one, of differentiating between an animal and a human, meaning to understand the strength leads you down into the valley of the shadow of death, meaning an animal would never lead itself into the valley of the shadow of death. Though I
Mm,
walk through the valley of it, so it is intentionally so because it knows the power of the law. The law is what allows the group to be comforted, to have a table set before thine enemies. Like you're not just going to win a little bit. You're gonna conquer. You're going to be you've got, like I can't remember who poetically stated this. If God is with us, who is against? Who could be against? So like the point is to turn what would be a fearful thing into a level of confidence that guarantees victory, changes you from an animal that is uh, unable to be brave. Like an animal doesn't have bravery in that sense. An animal would be self-preserving. It doesn't have a feeling of philosophical understanding of an afterlife. It doesn't know that there are rules to the game. It doesn't have morality and ethics. And so it would not hold. Like a group of individuals would not hold. It takes a collective, a team that is under the house of the Lord in the metaphorical sense. That is what holds. That is what will be victorious, which leads you to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Nobody goes into the valley of the shadow of death. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody wants to do that. But for the sake of the Lord and the fact that the Lord has led you through green pastures and to lie down next to still waters, like everything will be fine. It's like a reassurance of certain victory and certitude of righteousness. This is so, not trying to moralize, but getting to the evolutionarily advantageous component of the culture. So culture is like a software layer that plays on your hardware, right? This is the operating system. And what I'm saying is, when you can forego the fearful response, back to Dune, you can show your superiority in what? In warfare, to beat your opponents, to conquer, to survive when you're attacked, to make it through a tough experience, which is what happens in Dune, right? They get stabbed in the back by that Jabba the Hutt dude, whatever that guy's name is, and they come in and they don't like to be, they don't want the power to be switched, right? The power is switching it from house to house or whatever. And the other guy doesn't like that. He's not going to accept that. And so the point is, there's a reason to be able to go through the fear response, which is to have a not a runaway, to not run away as your solution, but to, find a way to fight back and be victorious. Meaning, as an evolutionarily impactful level of fitness, you don't want to die out. You want to survive. If anybody dies out, it's the other guy.
Interesting.
So fear is like death, right? Fear is death before you die. So when you run, like in the ancient battles, few people would die in the fight itself. Like there'd be two lines, they'd line up, they'd attack each other, spears and arrows and shields and swords and whatever. Relatively few people would die. The vast majority of people die when there's a rout. So that's when the ranks break, the lines collapse, everybody turns and runs because they're afraid. Then you get chased down from behind and slaughtered like animals. So it's like a test of will. Who will be standing shoulder to shoulder in a phalanx with your comrades against a fearful experience? And if you hold longer than they hold, you will rout them and they will not rout you. And so this ability to make a formation against an enemy, not as an individual, but as a team. And then it replicates larger and larger. Maybe they have a team too. So who's got the bigger team? And then who goes around the outside of the other team and hits the flank so that you can't be shoulder to shoulder because I'm coming at you from the side or the back, or all these things. Like, so human warfare before mechanization was about overcoming this fear. And it technically was death. I mean, if you were a more fearful person than the other, you would break ranks, you would flee and be routed, and you would die. Your women would be taken, and your possessions, and your children killed, and your possessions stolen, and your land taken. I mean, it was literally life or death.
Yeah.
And then you get back into pastoral society. These people are animal herders. They migrate. They don't have any one place with giant walls. They don't have farms. They don't hunt in giant forests. They're hyper honor system based, and they fight against fear.
Interesting. Does Tucker any thoughts from that? Do you remember kind of hearing that stuff growing up?
Yeah,
biblical passages there.
Yeah, but I mean, and it could have been the church I went to, but it was never very fire and brimstony. And I think depending on where you're looking in the Bible, there's stuff like this that's more like a battle cry almost. And it feeds into what Bob was saying about, it was the earliest ways of making a soldier overcome that fear to go do the thing that nobody wants to do.
Yeah. It is a really kind of bizarre thing to wrap your head around in the year 2024, right? I mean, Bob, you mentioned like mechanization of war and stuff. And by the way, that's really interesting part of the movie Civil War. Not to continue to bring it up, but um, so gnarly. And I don't. I'm okay to come back to the religious thing, but this contrast with war specifically. I had a bit here from Lord of the Rings. Jay and I were watching some of that Friday night, and the character Boromir. So I was going to dive into this a little bit, but yeah, I'm happy to go back to the religious piece of it. But just in the terms of war with like Lord of the Rings, it's like, this wasn't like the way war is mechanized now. I think it is like more terrifying. Well, we could say like it's getting to the point where like, yeah, you have this like drone technology. You don't even have to like put humans in there. It's oh god, there's a lot to say about that. It's very gnarly. But in the context of Lord of the Rings or old school war.
Wait,
Man, like
before you jump into the Lord of the Rings, which I love the quotes you pulled. I think it's well worth the conversation. I'm just going to try to string something together real quick.
Sure.
And by the way, a lot of what I'm talking about, 23rd Psalm and stuff, I mean, this is not interpretation from my church or any church I've ever been to. I'm not practicing anything anymore. So it's not something, we were not fire and brimstone. We were very, what do you want to call it? Modern take. I don't know what you want to call it. Very soft, gentle. I mean, I was not from a deeply righteous or Old Testament typey thing. And this is
to say like stone, like that person's working on the Sabbath, stone them quick or whatever.
Yeah, no. This is more like reform Christianity, like New Testament stuff with the new Bibles, with all the new revisions, meaning the we talked before about, is it thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not murder? I mean, the interpretation of the translation is very important. So new agey Bibles and stuff like that. Anyway, so that's my take on it now. That's my current take as a function of evolution. And here's what I'm getting at. We've talked about this a couple times because none of us, I believe, are true believers in the metaphysical sense of religiosity or deities or whatever. But imagine the effectiveness of it's us or them pre-monotheism. Because religion is, I don't think you can call a human without some kind of religiosity associated with their culture. I really don't. So imagine pre-monotheism versus a monotheistic fighting force. Well, let's go the way back. Let's just say the people, the quote unquote people, before there was even any sort of theistic concept, polytheistic concept, just more like animals. Okay, versus a group that has some sort of an understanding of, there's a question out there of, what do the stars mean and where did lightning come from and why does this happen and why does that happen? So the boundary between those two things, I would think the pre-polytheistic boundary or animism boundary, those cultures would be easily defeated by the people who had some sort of a theistic belief. And then I would think the monotheistic belief, where it's individualized, like you will win. It is destined for you to win. And if you do fall in battle, you'll go to heaven. Those people would be even more so able to vanquish their enemies who are polytheistic and don't have a personalized God or afterlife, and then take a technological group of people where they just don't even have to be fearful because they're sitting in Arizona in air conditioning with a video game controller in their hand, dropping hellfires on somebody,
Yeah.
going to a wedding in Syria or whatever. And
You
so what
know,
I'm saying,
yeah, I'm sorry, carry on.
well, that my point is, it's all a function of evolution. So the cultural layer is all about providing a level of fitness to those who operate that operating system, that level of culture on their hardware. Presumably, all those people are the same kind of people. Like in, say, 6,000 years to 10,000 years, there's not really enough time to fundamentally change what humans are. I mean, maybe we're taller on average because we have better nutrition or whatever, but you're not changing brains at this point, at this level of 5,000 years. You're not fundamentally changing the human brain in 5,000 years. So what I'm saying is the people are the same. Operating system has evolved from animism to polytheism to monotheism to technological superiority of hellfire missiles and satellites.
Yeah.
And whatever comes next. And so
Wow.
I try to take, this is me personally, I try to take the morality out of it. So when I read back at the, and I don't, it's not that I'm not appreciative of your pointing out the my way or the highway of the Christian text, and the fact that there's a patriarchal vein here, obviously, and etc. I'm just saying I see it as an adaptation, and everything that didn't overcome this adaptation has fallen away. It has lost the game of life, so to speak, evolutionarily speaking. And this too now is losing the game of life, evolutionarily speaking, to technology, which doesn't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
An M1 Abrams tank doesn't care if you're afraid or not afraid. It's just going to roll over you because it's 60 tons going 50 miles an hour, shooting 125 millimeter, rounds at your position or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just like we've superseded now the level of fear is the determining factor in war. And now we've got to Oppenheimer,
Right. Yeah. Right.
What I was going to say, though, when you look at it back in the biblical days, you're lining up with a group of people and you're charging towards each other to bash them over the head or stick a sword through their neck or, a sword through the gut and watch these people die at the end of your hand.
Yeah.
And it takes some pretty pros to inspire somebody to do that. You got to give them a pretty good fucking reason to do that.
Right.
And you look at modern combat where it's like you see that vaguely humanoid shape 300 yards that direction.
Yeah.
I want you to point this thing at it and pull a trigger.
Yeah.
That takes less inspiration because it's depersonalized the violence so much.
Yeah.
I like that. That's
but
great.
the opposite side of that is in modern warfare, like you say, you can witness so much more devastation on a large scale in a short time. Like,
imagine being
well,
like a
Oppenheimer,
B-52 pilot. Just make it like a B-52 pilot in the Bombardier, and just pressing a button at 30,000 feet, and then vaguely seeing like these puffs of smoke down below. And how would you ever represent any reality to the number of humans that just got blown to smithereens? I mean, it's insane.
I mean, think about back in the day, if you wanted to destroy a walled city, you literally had to siege it and basically isolate them from the outside world till they ran out of food or water and had to open the gates for you. And now you could literally vaporize every stone in a city in, 30 seconds?
Yeah. It's haunting. That's
Here's
the
what
cautionary
haunts,
tale thing that I
but
get from.
Here's what haunts me, guys, is what comes next. And I'm not saying I know what comes next. I'm just saying the pattern is it starts at
Yeah.
Earth and it just keeps on jumping, right? We had animism, polytheism, monotheism, technism.
Yeah.
What's the next ism? That makes
Um.
this that makes this look like, kids play.
Yeah.
I think the next practical step beyond nuclear weapons would be throwing engines on asteroids. So that you just have a group of asteroids sitting out in the asteroid belt that you have some sort of high-speed rocket motor on and just effectively hold the whole world hostage because you can literally destroy the whole world.
I see your point, but I'm going to go a different direction, and that is back to the idiocracy side, which is you just make a domesticated animal out of what was once a wild beast that was fearful, that you're fearful of. I don't disagree that you could do that. I'm just saying after nukes, it's like, yeah, you can kill the world 5 times over instead of 2 times over, 50 times over or 100 times over. It's still death for all. I mean, there's still.
Yeah.
But what I would say is preventing, like, nobody fears the cows in the field. You got 500, 600-pound cows that if they wanted to, they could run into you and stomp you, and a bull could obviously wreck you, or a horse could wreck you, or whatever, but they choose not to. Why? Because we feed them, we give them shelter, we've bred them in a way that we never bred the ones that were angry with us. We selectively bred out the ones that were feisty. We used the ones that were easily placated and just followed orders and sheep like, and that's my fear. My fear is that we become sheep, literally.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw a third one in here. By the way, thanks for that image, Tucker. I hadn't thought about, what's worse than nuclear? Oh yeah, like I can't wait to sleep. Yeah. I can't wait to sleep later thinking about now that's in my head. So thanks. But so one direction there, right? Idiocracy direction.
I really hope Elon Musk does not listen to this episode because that is
oh my god, right?
Right up his alley.
Yeah.
Block the sun, right? We'll block the sun.
Oh yeah, right. Right. Ugh. So I'll throw in the middle there ism. What ism? Pluralism. Like actually, we'll all. That's what's next. We'll all realize how absurd it is, to fight, and we'll all just get past it. We'll all get together. We'll all be living in harmony, pluralistic societies. That's what I think could be next. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what's more likely? Let's stack the 3, because I think it's a real question. I'm not trying to bullshit. Real question. A bigger world ender, like an asteroid dinosaur killer. We all get domesticated and the war ceases because the farmers don't war on their livestock, or we all just. Why can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
Right? That's the Rodney King thing. Why can't
we
all just
What's more likely? I don't want to answer that, man. I don't know. I know what I want. I want. What do I actually think is? I don't know. What would you guys say?
I think we're all going to pick our own. That's my point.
It's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Very tea leaves.
Yeah.
You're reading the thing, which I think is interesting because it probably reflects on us personally. It's probably a Rorschach test. This is a great Rorschach test, essentially. Is if you lead someone down the path of look, we're in this chain of evolutionarily more advantageous position. So in the past, let's just say this. In the past, there's been scarcity. Let's just say that in the future, what would the war be? What causes the war if we're post scarcity? Let's think about that. Is it that there's too many people? There's not enough people? The scarcity will come back.
Like water, fresh water.
Yeah.
That would be a scarcity thing. But
let's just say, there's some virus, like some like the thing that kills the bats, like the white nose virus or something. Like something goes out and it doesn't kill humans, but it kills all the cows and the sheep and the chickens, like avian flu or whatever. Like something, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, what,
Like the movie
what would,
Interstellar, it's the like a blight, like a wheat blight kind
yeah,
of that
yeah,
really
exactly.
fucked the whole food
Yeah, wheat blight. Yeah, exactly. Wheat blight.
supply. Yeah.
Something we don't know. Like we did, Monsanto, in their
Mm.
eternal wisdom, creates a genetically modified strain that the whole world adopts, and the previous strain disappears from all humanity. And then, oopsie, we didn't
Yeah.
realize this thing only reproduces 100 times, and then it never
Yeah.
reproduces again.
Right.
Oops, sorry guys.
Yeah.
And now we have to start the game of life over or something. But I guess my point is, like, what would, presumably we're at the technological limit of warfare, because we're at the point where we can kill all the whole world.
Yeah, without sending the soldier in, like they can, like,
Yeah.
like you guys said, sit at a controller, see it on a screen, and just like do this all.
Ballistic nukes. Right now, we have enough nukes pointed at every which way that if we lit them all off for whatever reason, the whole game is over. Back to war games, right? Matthew Broderick, all that stuff. So war games,
Yeah.
the only successful strategy is to not play. So now we're at the point of, we've got to the game where you can't play anymore. There's no sense in playing. What happens next? That's my question. What happens next? Do we go to Kumbaya? Do we go to idiocracy?
Yes.
Or does somebody Trump the world and go to outside the world and either go to Mars, go to the moon, or chuck rocks at the Earth or something?
Yeah. Another cinematic reference. It's a TV show. It's called For All Mankind, and it's fascinating. It's kind of like parallel universe. It's like Russia got to the moon first, not us, and then it goes through. See, it's like four seasons so far, and it goes through like 60 some years. So it's really well done, and but you get some of that story. You get some of those stories in that. There's still groups. There's still out groups, in groups. We're still fighting in this thing, and I vote Kumbaya.
Well, what happened? Let me ask you this, John. Let me ask you, and I haven't pre-thought of this, so I'm just doing this in real time. Is there any constraint on growth in the Kumbaya motto? So in the Kumbaya,
scenario, yeah.
Scenario, yeah. Because here's my thing. Like, aren't you just going to have exponential growth for all time, which is technically not really possible? If everybody just says, yeah, you do you have enough room, I do me, I have enough room, and we can all reproduce as much as we want and grow. What happens next? I just don't know if that's...
Yeah, I do think, like, part of my Kumbaya vision does include, more technological advancement and being able to, colonize the moon or Mars, or how about breathable liquids, so we can actually, live underwater in a way, you know what I mean? Like, throw any like fun, like, yay thing at my Kumbaya scenario. It's probably
I think what, to me it reminds me of Star Trek, now that you mentioned
it.
Yeah,
exactly. Star Trek.
I like it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Star Trek scenario.
Yes.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
So my scenario would be then that to control infinite growth, you have a small number of managers, farmers, if you will, who make the decisions. And now I say this out loud, it reminds me of Brave New World, Huxley. So it's very much a top-down, centralized decision-making process that gives this illusion of pleasure or good life to many, but in fact they're just kind of cogs in a machine or a factory or whatever you want to call it, and that controls the growth such that a very small number of alphas, if you will, are able to live a free and self-actualized life, and everybody else is kind of in a facsimile of that to the ends of providing this free and self-actualizing life to a very small number of people.
I would say, like, my Kumbaya vision is less Brave New World and more, Star Trek. But I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Mine is more Brave New World end. And then Tucker, So what's the point then? Who wins when you drop the dinosaur killer into the Yucatan Peninsula? Like, who wins in that thing? Or is it just like a self-destructive, like nobody wins and we just wreck the game?
Nobody wins.
Yeah.
It's a way of
resetting, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
The world population is going to follow my vision, or none of us will have one. You know.
Yeah.
There was also a good one in a sci-fi series I read where a much more advanced ET civilization basically parked a space station over Jupiter and used it as a vacuum to send the gases of Jupiter between the Earth and the Sun. So over a period of several decades, this cloud would actually become thick enough to block enough sunlight that photosynthesis would no longer be possible.
Whoa.
That's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally.
They're kind of dicks.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good time to read some of these quotes from Boromir. By the way, this was a fun tie into the political thing. You know, there was a nice organic thing that emerged about the ring, you know, and the power and the hobbits. So the hobbits are really the only ones that could do it because they don't want to. You know what I mean?
Good call.
So tying all this into that, but yeah, it struck me that Boromir, you know, he has a couple quotes that have the word fear in it. And the first one, it's when Frodo kind of tumbles down the mountain and the ring slips off his neck and Boromir holds it up and he says, "It is a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt over so small a thing." It was very interesting. And I think it comes back, you know, to him later there in the forest. Frodo's like decides or realizes, I guess, I don't know if he decides or if he realizes that he has to go on his own. Like it's the ring is too dangerous. Again, like he's a hobbit. He's the only one that can really do this. And, you know, it's great to have help and the friends and the companionship and the fellowship. But like, you know, eventually it's not going to work out. He's got to go by himself. And so he's kind of making his way and Boromir runs into him and he says, you know, we're all afraid, Frodo, but to let that fear drive us to destroy what hope we have. Don't you see that as madness? See, and like, you know, Boromir's got this in his head that like, it's not that bad. It's actually a gift. He even says it in the council. He's like, it's a gift. We can use this to destroy Sauron and everyone else. Well, I don't know about everybody. Certainly Gandalf, certainly, now what is Hugo Weaving's character's name? You know, the Elrond, which by the way, in the you know, in the Amazon series that we kind of briefly talked about, Rings of Power, it's sort of the Sauron origin story, and Elrond is there when the ring, you know, I was there, Gandalf, 3,000 years ago. What a great meme potential, right? Like all the things like when we were kids, but you know, you just throw that on there. I was there, Gandalf, 3,000 years ago. We had to, you know, use dial-up modem and stuff. Anyway, so Boromir thinks he can use this though, and he's saying fear. I think he's misplacing, you know, what's actually, I think, because we have the benefit because we know what's going on as, you know, the audience to know that like this isn't a gift. He can't use it, but he's using fear in this way that I think he's trying to manipulate Frodo, and I don't even think he realizes he's wrong. You know, it's weird, and he's calling it madness. And then he says, like, what chance do you think you have? They will find you. They will take the ring, and you will beg for death before the end. You will take the ring to Sauron. You will betray us. I mean, he's so convinced that if he doesn't get the ring himself, you know, it's him or nothing. It's very Coffee-esque, Coffee from the Abyss, where Coffee is like, dude, it's up to me. We have to send this nuke to this alien species and destroy them. Because if we don't, they're gonna destroy us. It's us or them. It's very. I thought that was a very like clear,
I like that, John.
sort of like similarity of just this kind of binary thinking. If we don't kill them, they will kill us. There's no other possibility.
Here's the thing why I like it so much. It's mission driven. And so for much of our experience, like having somebody on the team or having someone fighting for us who is mission driven like that is the epitome of heroic, is the absolute greatest ascension humans could get to be self-sacrificing and willing to, because he's not trying to do it for his own aggrandizement.
See, this is
in the
what's so
same,
interesting about the ring. Like, I agree. I think he doesn't think he is, but I
no, he
think,
doesn't think. But hold on one second, because in the other counterpoint to this is when Frodo offers Gladriel the ring,
yeah,
and she has this moment of absolute power hungry, like
yeah.
they will
You
love
will,
me.
you will love and fear me before you're
Yeah,
queen.
totally.
You
It's
know?
very, very cool. And Gandalf, by the way, he doesn't want to touch the ring.
Yeah,
When
right.
he gets a flash of it, so like that's the
Yeah.
whole point. Is absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Hmm.
But going back
That's
to
the
the
madness. That's the madness.
yeah,
You know.
yeah,
Yeah.
the madness is that there is no escape from this thing.
Yeah.
Meaning the ring,
Ooh.
once, as long as the ring exists. By the way, this is the paradox. As long as the ring exists, somebody could use it. Like, you can't just give it to the opponent. You can't use it
Yeah.
yourself. It has to be destroyed. And so
Yeah.
that's where we're faced with this existential crisis, in my opinion, where the ring has been created. Both sides have a ring. All sides have a ring. And now what do you do? Like, it's not just bad. It's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah. And it's
Because you look
patient, too. I mean, I think that's why it's so beautiful
correct.
that the story of the ring is that it does go, it gets washed away in the water, and what is it? Yeah, thousands of years or some shit.
Yeah.
It's just buried
Yeah.
until chance comes along, in
Here's
the
the
form of
problem.
Smeagol, or actually it's Deagle, I think, that grabs it. But still, like, eventually, like you say, like, the only solution is to destroy it.
But you
You can't
can't.
hide it.
Here's my point. The destruction would be destruction of physics. Okay, so the symbolism is that we went from an entire history of humans on this planet who fought with hand weapons to a singular war that converted it to a meat grinder. And the meat grinder came from, understanding physics and chemistry, and metallurgy and industrialization, and having the type of farming that allows enough humans to specialize in it. I mean, the point is to unwind this thing and to destroy the ring, as it were, would be to go back to like
I see what you're saying.
basic pastoral hunter-gatherer lifestyle. That's the only thing you could do. There's no other
Yeah.
way, because this thing, you might do away with the concept for thousands of years. That doesn't change physics. Doesn't change the
Right.
properties of iron, compared to flesh. Blah blah blah. So I think we're at this point of, it is an existential crisis, that the Pandora's box has been opened, can never be closed again, even if we lose it for 500,000 years, and the next type of humanoid or whatever, maybe it's an octopus, I don't know, whatever it is, when they realize how to make a Gatling gun, or it's derivative or whatever, then there's no choice anymore. Like, whoever doesn't use that power is going to, by definition, lose the war. So that's where you get into this weird paradox.
Yeah.
Well, not to rain on everybody's parade, but I'm going to.
Wait, I was gonna say, you already did the asteroid thing. Like, what could you possibly say now?
I look at, like, the problem with, like, the Kumbaya thing is that it works till it doesn't. And, like, we only have one laboratory to study, which is life on Earth, but all life on Earth is based on competition. And so if you scale that out enough, it becomes you either become the species that develops faster than light travel and conquers the galaxy and then goes on to conquer other galaxies, or you're conquered by the one that does.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That is the problem with expansion forever. And by the way, it seems like, forever growth is built into life. So we're kind of screwed with that, and a couple with the finite nature of resources. Like, if resources grew infinitely, like, here's my point. Maybe the solution is virtual. like that's probably the only way you could ever get to a point of you can grow an infinite amount and so can everybody else, is to make the universe, air quotes, be a virtual one. But then you're in Plato's cave. And so what good is that? Is the illusion, the steak, is it taste as good? Probably, I guess. I don't know. I
Well,
mean, we're not there yet, but
I think what if that is the next stage of our evolution, right? What if
everybody
I
gets their
think
own universe. Everybody gets their
well,
own universe.
yeah, well,
You
I'm
get
kind
a
of
universe. You get a universe. You
yeah.
get a universe.
I think I've thought about this in other ways before, so this might be the first time I'm saying it this way. But yeah, what if we could get in a time machine and go, hundreds of generations into the future? What if there are no more human beings because all life is like, all human life has been converted into like this digital consciousness where, it sounds kind of neat to me because like, why haven't we colonized the moon? Well, it takes a lot of resources to get human beings like out of orbit, right? Just out of orbit and then go there and like, well, how much resources does it take to broadcast a signal? You know what I mean? Like, what if we could all just like live in data, live in frequencies and machines, and maybe that's my kumbaya vision of the future. Who knows? Where like it's something we can't even like comprehend now because we are so used to like, I like you said, Tucker, like eventually it kind of does, the kumbaya will stop and somebody's going to have this advantage, and if you're not part of that group that has the advantage, you're the one being taken advantage of. In a weird way, I'm like, I kind of want to watch Civil War to cheer myself up now. How did that happen?
I mean, I guess,
but this is like part of my whole philosophy is like, I can still like think those thoughts and have those realizations and have that sword hanging over my head and still find the beauty in life.
Well, good.
Like,
that's good to hear. Thank you.
Like, because I think the bigger picture when you look at stuff like that is, yes, you should be afraid of that, but can you do anything about it? No. So why be afraid of something you don't have a choice in?
Yeah. Right.
Once you realize you don't have the choice, then you can choose to go do something else.
I think the key word there is choose. I think this is where it comes back to like, maybe this is a good time to sort of wrap up, but this question, is fear ever fair? Well, sure, sometimes maybe it's not, whatever, but I think the important part is like, what do we do about it? Because I do think like, even though I believe there's a lot of truth in the free won't over free will, I also think that the more we think about this stuff, the more we're aware of it, the easier it will be for us to make, fundamentally impactful choices, that like help our own processes, our own subconscious models and strange repeating loops from perpetuating the same nonsense over and over of, well, I see this thing and it makes me want to kill a human or whatever, like we truly like can evolve because I think we are able to choose what actions we take.
What's interesting, John, is that kind of self-enlightenment is the crux of that Eckhart Tolle book.
Oh, goody. I can't wait.
What's the name of it one more time, please? I'm trying to
yeah, and this
Change
will be
the Earth or something, or
it's a new Earth, awakening to your life's purpose. And just to go back to Dune real quick, if you listen to the audiobook, swear the guy sounds just like the guy narrating the film books in Dune, but with a German accent instead of an English one. So it's very satisfying if you like that. But anyway.
But the new Earth means Tolle's vision is through individualized enlightenment. You do change the world. So even though, to Tucker's point, you can figure out your point in the game of life and your point, your perspective relative to all the other humans who've lived or will ever live, etc. And it's just like, I can just be enlightened on my own. But then if you were to replicate that globally, that's the new Earth. That would be a game changer, is everybody having that same mentality would be enough to change the world. So
yeah, here. That's a good place to end it. No more doomsday shit, Tucker. Although, like I said, I really actually did have this moment. Like, I think if I watch Civil War, that's actually not as scary now as it was yesterday before I thought about somebody putting rockets on an asteroid and like hold the world hostage. Anyway, so
well, let me leave us off with one last little quip of my nihilistic philosophy.
Oh boy.
Just remember, in the end, I am nothing, but right now I am everything.
Oh, I don't even want to do ChatGPT.
I thought it was gonna.
I mean, I kind of want to, but oh wow.
I thought you were gonna go to the Big Lebowski. We believe in nothing.
Oh, yeah. We believe nothing. Yeah. Is that authentic or original Tucker? Tucker's a motherfucker.
Yeah.
In the end, I am nothing, but right now I am everything.
Yep.
I love it. I'm gonna write that down and put it in the show notes. Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
It reminds me of, I can't remember whose quote it was, but I read it in I think it was a Kurt Vonnegut book. Some quote about when someone commits suicide, they say, "Now I destroy the universe."
It's true.
Yeah, I can't remember where it came from. I think it was Cat's Cradle is the name of the book. I want to say, I think it's Cat's Cradle. And I don't remember, because I remember in the book he used it, but he quoted somebody else. I don't know if it was like a old-timey quote or something. But yeah, that concept of you kind of, whether you like it or not, you are you're like a single-use universe, disposable. You know, like single-use, like a bunch of spoons, like plastic spoons or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like cutlery. Every single one of them is its own little, single-use thing, but you are the whole universe to you.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm just here for the ride.
Yeah.
All right, cheers up,
Nice.
ChatGPT. What you got?
Yeah. So do you guys want to guess yes or no? This is going to give us the Winston Churchill quote. I think it
97% yes. 97%.
Yeah. Okay, here we go, ChatGPT. Give me a quote about fear. Here's a well-known quote about fear from Bartlett's Familiar Quotations. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Roosevelt. At least according to ChatGPT, this quote is from Franklin D. Roosevelt's first inaugural address in 1933. It was delivered during the Great Depression and aimed to inspire confidence and courage in the face of national hardship. The phrase has since become iconic as a message of resilience against fear and uncertainty. I mean, it's a good one, but give me a different one. I'm going to ask ChatGPT now. Give me a different quote about fear. Typos. Okay, there we go.
My apologies to FDR, by the way. I don't know why we gave that all to Churchill.
Yeah, I really couldn't remember. I just knew it was one of them. I knew it was around that time. So, okay, this is a fun one. I'll read. I will. Oh, by the way, it says here's another powerful quote about fear, and the snippet. It says this line is spoken by Yoda in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. While not from Bartlett's Familiar Quotations, it's widely recognized for its wisdoms, reflecting the destructive consequences of letting fear control one's actions. Ooh. So, even though ChatGPT can be predictable, also good job, ChatGPT. Okay, so here it is. And by the way, yes, thank you. You guys, I love this episode. This was so fun. Thank you for listening. Contact us, sendingpoets@gmail.com. And here we go. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.